Hey there, folks. How you doing today? Welcome back to the channel, and please bear with all the background racket that you're going to hear throughout the day's production. We are on location where life happens. It's Easter weekend. We've got folks making noise. The neighbors have folks making noise. It's a party, and I'm not going to let that stand in the way of all the fun that we have in store for you. Out here on the table in front of us is a really, really cool little rifle that I'm going to tell you just a little bit about before we get into the subject of today's video. This is an original JM coated 1895 STP trapper model stainless laminate Marlin rifle that was made back 20 something years ago by Marlin in North Haven, Connecticut. It belongs to my buddy Dane. He sent it to me so that we could mount some stuff on top of it, which we're going to talk about here in just a second. Folks, appreciate this for what it is. This thing is a museum piece. But it's not really what we're here to talk about today, rather just the platform, the vehicle, if you will, that we chose to highlight a couple of nice accessories. Now, you'll see here on top of it, we have a rail system that comes from the folks over at XS in Fort Worth, Texas. We did a video on that earlier. I'll put a link to it down in the description below so that you can find that if you want to see it. Somewhere along the way, the factory sights on this had been replaced with a set of True Glow. That's what I'm thinking happened. This rifle should have come with like an Express or a Skinner style sight. This one had fiber optics from True Glow. My buddy Dane had mentioned to me that he wanted to mount a rail on top of it so that he would have some options with what he was going to put on top of it for an optic. So we did the rail. The rail worked out really good. And then I decided to test this Gowutar HHC17R optic on top of the rifle. Now this optic, it's a RMSc micro red dot pistol sight that is obviously capable of being mounted to a 1913 rail. This is not the first one of these that we have tested here on this channel. There are probably some of you that are saying, didn't you do a video on that optic on your Canik Mate MC9 a while back? Well, actually, I did. We have one right there. Now, if for whatever reason you decide you want this optic, but you don't want to mount it on top of a pistol like this, it does come with a little pick rail adapter so that you can mount it on top of any 1913 rail. This one, folks, is the HHC17G as opposed to the 17R. What's the difference? Red and green. That's it. Some folks prefer the red optic. Other folks prefer the green optic. I am more of a green person myself. But it depends on the circumstances. If you look at the color spectrum with ultraviolet on one end and infrared on the other, you'll see that green is kind of in the middle, and most folks can see that better. But the green dot optics have a disadvantage to the red ones in terms of stuff like battery life. The red ones tend to last a lot longer with the same amount of battery power. So I would say that it comes down to a user preference. What is it you're going to use it for? If you're using it in a lower light situation, the red one should be fine. If you're going to use it in a brighter situation, the green one tends to be better, at least for me. Your mileage may vary. But let's not get hung up on that. I'll go ahead and throw up the specs on the optic here. If you want to see more on that, pause the video. I'm not going to beat it to death because we've already talked about it in the other video that we did on the green optic. You might be wondering, though, why did I decide to mount this little red dot on top of a rifle rather than on top of a pistol like it was actually intended for? That is simple. This rifle is a 45-70. Folks, if you haven't ever shot one of these, it's like shooting slugs out of a 12 gauge. the recoil impulse is impressive. So I figured it would be a good host platform to test the durability of the little Gowutar optic. Now, I got it all mounted up on there. I took it over to the range. And you'll notice here with the first shot fired that we hit to the 5 o'clock position about 8 inches from the center of the target. Made a couple of quick adjustments, and then we fired a 3-shot group. It was just a little low and just a little to the right. So we were moving in the right direction. I went ahead and I took it out to 50 yards. I fired one more round at that target. And you'll notice that it's, again, a little low and a little to the right. Made a couple more adjustments using a small flat-headed screwdriver and drilled these 3 shots. In a row at 50 yards. Folks, that's 50 yards with a little tiny pistol optic mounted on top of a shorter rifle. All I can say is that's impressive. I would have been hard pressed to do that with a magnified optic, so I'm going to tell you that the clarity of the dot, especially for me with my astigmatism, out of these Gowutars is probably about the best that I've seen on a reflex model sight. I had an idea to take this off of the rifle and mount it on top of my Canik Mate MC9 just to test it against the green one earlier. I almost did that, but it's shooting so beautifully on top of this rifle, I figured I was just going to leave it on there for now. The recoil impulse from the 4570, as I mentioned earlier, is significant. The optic did not shift point of impact throughout any of the testing that we did. Now, I didn't fire 500 rounds of 4570. I don't have that kind of money. If you want to send me 500 rounds of 4570, I will test it through the rifle and see what it does. But in the meantime, what does all that even mean? If you are looking for either an RMSc pattern optic or a little low profile red dot reflex optic for something like the flat top of this little lever action rifle, and you don't want to go broke buying it, I encourage you to check out the Gowutar. These things are really pretty good. You go over to Amazon.com, they sell these on there. They're about $129 regular price, but the folks over at Gowutar sent me a 25% off coupon for this optic. So I'll put the numbers together and I'll run them over here on the side. Of course, tax rates are going to vary, but you should be able to get it for somewhere around $90 or $95. Regardless, I think for the money spent on it, this is one of the better options, and I have tested time and time again Gowutar optics here on this platform, and I've yet to be disappointed in them. So now I'll turn it over to you. You can tell me, have you tried out the Gowutar optics? Have you had a good experience with them? Have you had a bad experience with them? I'll open up the comment section. Let me know down below what you think. And until next time, take care and God bless.